Hello and welcome back. So last time we were together, we talked about setting up your template and getting it ready to go. Now we're going to go ahead and start drawing the house plan. And to give you a quick reminder, this is what the plan looks like. We are going to start here at the garage and work our way kind of in a counter or clockwise kind of rotation around there. We do have some rooms we don't have sizes for, but we'll work out how to estimate those for you and get that all worked out. But this is our plan, so make sure you have that beside you as we begin to draw, and we'll start right away here. Switch back now to our plan. So in order to draw, we want to be on the main level floor line. Make sure you're in floor plans, main level floor line. Now, as we talked last time, we do not want to delete these 4 low markers. Those are your elevation points and cameras. So those need to stay, so we're going to work in this inside of all that. And since we're doing walls, I'm going to go to the Architectural tab and select Wall. Now once we do that, you're going to see that the wall is going to change here in the properties. It's going to come up to a random wall. It may be the same as this one or may not. But inside your template, you have a large quantity of walls to select from. So they're in alphabetical order. So we have columns and concrete walls and exterior walls. We have foundation walls and generic walls and interior walls and wainscoting. And we'll talk about what each of those are as we go. I think on this house, I'm going to, because of the nature of it, just keep it kind of simple and match the plan. The plan has these exterior walls as being brick. Now we go up to the exterior. So exterior starts with an E, so that's the first one. And we look for brick, and we have brick on metal stud, brick on wood stud, brick on CMU, brick on 2x6, brick on 2x4. All right, now you can build a house with 2x4 studs. That's not a problem structurally. The problem comes into play with insulation. We need an R factor, that's resistance to heat change, that's larger than what can be accommodated in a 2x4 wall. Now, if you're willing to use something like spray-on foam or polystyrene, you may be able to get it to work with a 2x4 stud, but more likely you're going to need a 2x6. So we'll use the exterior brick 2x6 stud, and now I see that my whole properties has changed. It has that all set up. And what I want to do is kind of look at how this wall is built a little bit to give you an idea of what's going on there. In order to see the wall, I'm going to hit Edit Type. And that brings up the properties for this wall. And we can see that it is it'll be 10.5 inches thick. That's a 2x6 stud with 4-inch brick. But let's look a little closer at how that lays out. To do that, we need to look at the structure. So we're going to go Edit. And we see that the top here is the exterior of the wall, and the bottom is the interior. So we start with common brick. It's about 3 inches. Then we have 1 inch of air. So there's a gap in there, a little air gap. This is what keeps the brick from transferring moisture into the wood. Then we have an air barrier. So this is our Tyvek or your house wrap. Then we have a 1/2 inch plywood sheathing. And sometimes that could be 3/4 or even 5/8 in order to keep the wall structurally sound. If you're in a high earthquake zone, that may be a little larger. And then we have our 5.5 inch stud, which is a 2x6. They're not exactly the same size as the name is. They are when they're cut, and then they get kiln dried and shrink, and we'll talk about that in class. Then we have a vapor retarder, and then your gypsum board. So we have 2 vapor barriers to keep moisture out of this wall. Okay. So we know the exterior is the brick, so we hit OK there. And we're going to hit OK again. And then this is going to zoom on this corner a little bit so it's a little closer. And let's start with the garage. Now, if we look at your drawing, your garage is 25 feet wide and 23 feet deep on the interior. So when I start to draw a wall, I'm going to left-click my mouse, and the wall is started. Now, I need to look at how this wall is being drawn. So if I come across the top in this small ribbon, it tells me that I'm currently drawing by the center of the wall. That is not what I want. So I'm going to cancel. And I come up here and look again. So I have center location. I want to draw by the finished face. Let's go interior this time. Okay. So now when I pick and I look down this line, The blue line is the inside of the space. Okay, so if I just draw along here, I can see the dimension changes on that blue dimension line. That's a temporary dimension line. So if I know my exact value that I want, in this case it's 23 feet, I can just send the cursor in the direction I want to go and type 23 and enter, and I now have a 23-foot wall. So I'm going to come up the other direction, and actually I did this a little wrong, so I'm going to undo that and start again, because I actually needed to have a 25 foot. So I'm going to come across here, and I'm going to do 25 feet. Now, if you're just doing feet, you don't need to put in a mark. If I go in this direction, it's also going to be, this is where my 23 feet comes in. So you have to make sure your cursor stays straight. So you might have to use a two-hand method. 23. And there's that. Now this brick wall does come back over a little bit. And if you look on your plan, it has a little bit of a jog in there. Typically, these are going to be 2 feet, maybe 4 feet. This one, I'm going to kind of make a guesstimate at. I'm going to go 4 feet with it from the corner. And the reason I'm doing that, so I can just line it up like that and cancel, is when you're doing with brick, you don't want to cut every single brick. So if you do what's called modulus dimensioning, that means if the brick is a 4-inch by 4-inch by 8-inch, or a 4-inch by 3-inch by 8-inch, you want to make sure that these can be, if I cut in half, I'm dealing with 4-inch units. And that's kind of what I want to work with. And so if your dimension is divisible by 4, then it's a good dimension for brick. That's only with brick. Others, you can do whatever you want. But with brick, if you can keep that divisible by 4, it'll be a lot easier. Okay, now at this point, I'm going to come back over here to the other side, and I'm just going to draw, cancel that. This is going to draw another wall to bring up the right-hand side. Now, if I'm drawing, notice my inside is on my outside. So I want to flip that. To do that, I'm going to hit the space bar and just flip it over. So your face bar is a toggle and realigns how that wall is going. And I don't know how far this one goes. So I'm just going to bring it up a ways and call it good. That's all I can do. Because there's a 2x wall that connects these together that is interior, and we don't want brick on the inside of my house. So I'm going to leave that vacant for right now and switch walls. To do that, I'm going to go to the wall in architecture. I'm going to switch now to an interior wall. So I scroll down to interior. And I have a 2x6 partition. I have a 2x6 bearing frame wall. And so I want to use the 2x6 partition. And I'm going to pick that up right at the end of the wall I've already done. Space bar that over so it aligns. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. So another wall, grab the corner point, pull that up. And then I'm going to zoom up on these. So this one is not aligned. I'm off by about 1/2 inch. This is where the align tool comes in place. I do align, select the wall that's good, and the wall that needs to go to it. And now it's a nice straight line. Cleans it up really quick and easily. And technically I can do that here with these. You can select the wall and then the end and trim that way. Or you can use the corner tool, select the 2 walls and have corner off. So either one works fine, whichever makes you the most satisfied in everything you're doing. All right, so now I know where this is. I came over 4 feet. I'm going to go back to my exterior wall again and continue to make my laundry room. Now, I need to kind of know where that laundry room is going. That laundry room is 9 foot wide by 12 foot tall, deep. So I'm going to do an offset. And I change that value to 12 feet. I'm going to select my interior wall. And I can see a preview of where that's going. So that's going to go up to there. Now, if you want to verify that and then modify, make sure that it's still going to the middle of this wall. That's not good. I need to make a change in my settings. All right, so we go now to Manage. I'm going to go over here to Additional Settings. I'm going to scroll down till we get to Hmm. Where do I want to go to? That's kind of weird. Oh, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to go back to that again. So then do manage, additional settings, and I want to go with annotation arrowheads. And so I can get this to come up right now. Let's do that one more time. Modify. And this is a shortcut. We're going to go to annotations and over to temporary dimensions. Okay, now right now this is set for the walls to be measured on center lines. I want that to be on faces and doors and windows on openings. And I hit OK. Now, if I do modify and select that wall, it is from inside inside. And this is the laundry. And I'd like this to be 12 feet. So that puts that where I want that. And I'm just going to go back to architecture wall. And I'm not going to change my wall. I'm just going to grab on here and just go up. Just like that. And now I'm going to do some checking. So I'm doing my modify, select the wall. And this has an 3 foot 11 and a half inches. And that is going to, got to make sure you know what it's going to before we change it. That is going to the edge of the chipboard. So what I want to do is take that dimension. Oops, I totally lost it. Let's do it again. I'm going to throw an actual dimension in there. This time we'll go to annotate. Go to linear dimension. I usually use the aligned. It's a little easier. And I'm going to go from the inside corner to the corner. And I want this value to be 12. That's a little crazy. Then I want this value here. I want that to be 4. And right now it's 4.6. Okay, so I've got some things to adjust. I've got a 4.6 where I want a 4. So I'm going to do modify. I'm just going to change the dimension. And if I can get it to cooperate. Come down here. Oh, sorry about that. We want to double click, get that to edit. And change that out. And it's not going to let me do that. Because I did it once, it didn't let me go back. Because it's grabbed on. So this is one of the problems you might run across. If that's the case, grab the wall. And you'll see in here now it says 3 foot 11 and a half. This is 4 foot 6 and a half. I'm just going to change this back to 4. And that will shift my dimensions. Okay. So sometimes you have to get a little creative and be a little resourceful. Think about how things are related and go with that. Makes things much better. Then this guy here, if it's 12 foot, that's what that should be. So I'm verifying that. I need a 9 foot, so I might as well do that now. I'm going to do an offset. So modify, offset, set the distance to 9 foot for that laundry width. And that's this one. Get to go the right direction, right there. And we're going to check. And that's an 8 foot 5 and a half. So now I'm just going to highlight that, make it 9. Went the wrong way. So I go here and then make that 9. There it goes. So it depends on what you have selected, how you're going about ordering it. This is the laundry room, and it is a corner. So I'm just going to corner that off. And then there's a hallway that comes off right here. Okay, so while we're doing that, I do know I'm going to have a wall that comes here, and I have these walls here. And I'm just throwing walls in right now, and I'm going to continue to do that for just a moment because it's just handy. Space bar to flip it over, straight, and make sure it's aligned. So I want it to be lined up straight. Okay, now we're making some progress. We have a garage and a laundry room. Woohoo, we're making so much progress. All right, let's talk about how we're going to work out all these walls. I need these walls to be exactly the right size. So the interior ones are not 2x6s. They are 2x4s. So I'm going to cancel out of this little selection thing. And I'm going to change these to an interior 2x4 bearing wall. And I want you to watch what happens to the drawing. Not much, but these have become clear. So now I can go and use my mask properties change right here. Select one, select the other. And that's all I'm going to change on this. Okay, so now we're making big time progress. All right. Over here is where my mudroom is. Between this wall and the mudroom wall is about 3.5 feet. And I'm guessing at that completely because I think the door is closer to 3 feet and that has a little bit more room before it starts the stone. So I'm going to go with this one. And we're going to do, what we then do? We're going to do an offset. And typically when I do a hallway, I'm going to do 4 feet. This one, however, may be a little close. So I'll change that to 3.5 feet on that offset. And now we're going to go bump that over. So there's my hallway forming. And that makes it easy. And then the lavatory, let's put some numbers on there. So I just have to select the wall. And it puts numbers in. So this is 7, 7. And I need that to be a flat 7 feet. So I'm going to say here's 7. That makes this hallway 3.9. That's a little wider than what might be needed, but I got a lot to carry in there. So we'll make it work. And I'm all of a sudden scared for my life. Because this is actually 5, not 7. That looks better. All right, so 5 foot by 7 is that powder room. That means I need to go up 7. So doing an offset. 7 feet. 1, 2. Okay. So we get those in. Now let's trim things down a little bit and make some adjustments. And the adjustments we make are really for us and only for us, which is cool. So cool. I don't need this line here. Kind of threw that in by accident. And then this guy, I don't know, I could use a little more space there. So like that. And then these will match, so I'm going to do match. Okay, now what we're going to do next here, folks. Sorry about that pause. I was just kind of thinking. I need to make sure these lines, the interior walls, match. So if I'm looking at my walls, this wall here goes all the way up, and this wall does not. So let's see if we can get those to select. So this one is going to turn to a 2x4 partition. Where'd that go? Where did my 2x4 go? All right, there it is. Boom. Okay, so that thins the wall down. That actually gives me a little more space than what I might have had otherwise, but that's quite all right. And we do not know really much more about where the doors are, and that doesn't really matter. Doors can go where you want to put them. But I do want this water closet to be functional. So if I look between here, That's only 1'8". That is not a decent water closet. You need at least 30 inches, preferably 3 feet. So, and my hallway can't be less than 3 feet. So I can add 8 inches to that. So that would be 16. But that is still not quite going to make everything work for me. So this is where you start designing the house a little bit. Even though it's already been done, you are going to have to go through and make sure everything works. And that means you got to pay attention to what we do in class and what you didn't do on your puzzle. Now, when I did this 4 feet over here, that was a guess, complete guess. If I change that value, I can get a hold of it. Maybe. Gosh dang it, kind of crazy. So I want this to be down a little bit. I want to move this wall over. So let's then arrow it. I'm going to select the wall, use the arrow keys, and shift that over if I can without changing this guy. And I just changed that guy, so I got to fix it. I'm going to make this 3.5 feet. Turn my number locks off. How nice. Got things a little lined up weird. Okay, we're going to do it this way. I want this down to 3.5 feet. One right or the other. It's then go to 3.5 feet. So I'm going to take this guy and just arrow it over, but it's moving the whole thing. So I need to put another value in here. And notice it's back up to this value here again. It's just kind of getting a little annoying, to be honest with you. So I'm going to go from here. Now hold the shift key down here. Control key, sorry. And see if we'll give it a number. That's not going to. All right. And we got this guy here that popped out of nowhere, so we're going to get rid of that. And I'm going to take this guy and say, I want you to measure over to here. And that's got to be at 25 foot, 8.5. So I'm going to go back to 25. I'm making lots of mistakes here. Isn't that fun for you? Okay. Suck that in a little bit. This still isn't correct where I want it. Again, I want this to be 3 feet if I can get it there. So I'm going to take this guy. I'm going to move him the other way. Yeah, they're locked together. See this lock? I got to unlock it. Now I should be able to move them separately and independently. Make this 3.5. There we go. And then this is going to be changed again. So we got to go through and just change everything back to the way it was. So this is going to go back to 9. And this one here has got to be 5. And that means the spacing here needs to be 18 inches. Not 18 feet, 18 inches. So with inches, you'd have to put the quote mark in order to get the inches in there. So that can be my closet. All right, we're making progress. Wow, making progress. Now, the next thing I want to do is end this lavatory. So if it's 5 feet wide, it's 7 feet deep. So I'm going to do an offset of 7 feet. And that puts it right there. So I'm going to do a corner. And union those so they can do that. And we have this guy comes all the way down. So we're going to take and select here, grab the blue dot, and pull it straight down. Okay, so now that connects. Now, in order for there to be a water closet in here, this has to be 3 feet. And it is so not even close. So we got to come and tweak that a lot. And how we're going to do that, I don't know yet. Yay, teacher doesn't know an answer. This guy here, That needs to be a 3-foot hallway. Your minimum hallway is 3 feet. So I'll make sure you get that in there because that's important. And we keep checking numbers as we go. So we're checking our values as we go to make sure everything works. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. So you just have to be aware of it. Okay, we're going to keep going on this route until we get them all in there. I'm going to go ahead and finish this out real quick, and then I will come right back, and we'll pick up the bedrooms.